The rain poured down that afternoon, battering a jungle of black umbrellas. Each one moved like the bowed heads of mourners scattered across Portland Cemetery. The ground was soft with fresh mud, and the scent of wet earth permeated the air, mingling with something colder. Regret. I stood at the edge of my wife Alice's grave, the coffin suspended above the open earth, my hand tightly clutching her favorite silver cross. Its worn edges dug into my palm with every adjustment of my grip, sharp enough to bleed if I let it. That pain anchored me, reminded me I was still here even if she wasn't. For a moment the world was all gray and shadows, until I saw her Emma, my daughter-in-law, a flash of red silk among the ocean of black coats. Her dress clung to her like a weapon, each step punctuated by the sharp click of her heels on the cobblestones. People noticed. People murmured. And yet, she walked as if she were on a catwalk, not at a funeral. She leaned toward my son, Oliver, her lips brushing his ear. I didn't have to strain to hear her. "This day is like a vacation," he whispered. His words cut me like broken glass. And then, Oliver laughed. A quick, careless laugh that twisted something deep in my chest. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just gripped the cross tighter until the metal sank in, the pain keeping me silent as the priest's voice recited hollow prayers for eternal peace. But peace was the last thing in that place. Emma swayed her hips as if in celebration, her diamond earrings catching the dim gray light. She tossed her hair back, a mocking smile curving her lips. She didn't belong there, not among these final vows, nor in the place where she had held Alice's hand for the last time, whispering the promise to keep the family together. And now, it had failed. A friend of Alice's gently touched my arm. "James, I'm so sorry." I nodded, but my throat had closed. The words wouldn't come out. Behind me, I heard a sigh. One of Alice's oldest friends leaned toward her husband and whispered, "What does she think this is?" I wanted to ask the same thing. The service ended, the priest's words dissolving into the rain. The mourners slowly dispersed, umbrellas swaying in the wind. Emma and Oliver stood on the road, her red dress a beacon of defiance, her smile directed directly at me, as if I were already irrelevant. A ghost at my own wife's funeral. My jaw ached from holding back the storm that wanted to erupt, but I remained silent. Dignity was all I had left. "Don't let them break you, James." Alice's voice echoed in my mind. She'd said it once in her life. I didn't listen then, but now I listened. As the last umbrellas disappeared down the path, the rain slowed to a drizzle. I stood alone beside the mound of fresh earth, the world strangely silent except for the faint hum of traffic in the distance. Emma and Oliver had already left, probably planning how to divide the money that didn't yet belong to them. I ran my thumb over the grooves of the cross. Every curve, every mark, a map of Alice's love and faith. They thought they'd already won. They thought I was just an old man too broken to fight. They were wrong. I put the cross in my pocket. With my other hand, I took out my phone. I still didn't know who I would call, but the need to act burned within me. Firm, unwavering. I lowered my voice to a whisper meant only for Alice's grave. "You are wrong." A weak ray of sunlight broke through the clouds, reflecting off the damp grass, shining like the faintest promise. I walked away from the grave, each step deliberate, my phone still heavy in my palm. This wasn't over. That night, the rain pounded on the windows. The rain fell in heavy sheets that afternoon, beating against a forest of black umbrellas. Each one swayed like the bowed heads of mourners, scattered across Portland Cemetery. The ground was soft with freshly turned mud, and the smell of wet earth mingled with something colder, regret. I stood at the edge of my wife Alice's grave, the coffin suspended above the open earth, my hand tightly clutching her favorite silver cross. Its worn edges dug into my palm with every adjustment of my grip, sharp enough to cut if I let it. That pain anchored me, reminded me I was still here even if she wasn't. For a moment, the world was tinged with gray and shadows. Until I saw her Emma, my daughter-in-law, a burst of red silk among the ocean of black coats. Her dress clung to her like a weapon, each step punctuated by the sharp click of her heels on the cobblestones. People noticed. People whispered. And yet she walked as if she were on a catwalk, not at a funeral. She leaned toward my son Oliver and her lips brushed his ear. I didn't have to strain to hear her. "This day is like a vacation," he whispered. His words cut me like broken glass. And then, Oliver laughed. A quick, carefree laugh that twisted something deep in my chest. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just gripped the cross tighter until the metal sank into my hand, the pain keeping me silent as the priest's voice prayed hollow prayers for eternal peace. But peace was the last thing in that place. Emma swayed her hips as if in celebration, her diamond earrings catching the gray light. She didn't belong there. Not among those final vows, not in the place where she'd held Alice's hand for the last time, whispering a promise to keep the family together. And now, it had failed. A friend of Alice's touched my arm gently. "James, I'm so sorry." I nodded, but my throat tightened. The words wouldn't come out. Behind me, I heard a sigh. One of Alice's oldest church friends leaned toward her husband and whispered, "What do you think this is?" I wanted to ask the same thing. The service ended, the priest's words dissolving into the rain. The mourners slowly dispersed, umbrellas waving against the wind. Emma and Oliver stood on the road, her red dress a beacon of defiance, her smile directed directly at me, as if I were already irrelevant. A ghost at my own wife's funeral. My jaw ached from holding back the storm that wanted to erupt, but I remained silent. My dignity was all I had left. "Don't let them break you, James." Alice's voice echoed in my mind. She'd said it once in her life. I didn't hear her then, but I do now. As the last umbrellas disappeared down the path, the rain turned to mist. I stood alone beside the mound of freshly turned earth, the world strangely silent save for the distant hum of traffic. Emma and Oliver had already left, probably planning how to divide the money that didn't yet belong to them. I ran my thumb along the grooves of the cross, every curve, every mark, a map of Alice's love and faith. They thought they'd already won. They thought I was an old man too broken to fight. They were wrong. I put the cross in my pocket. With my other hand, I took out my phone. I didn't know who I would call yet, but the need to act burned within me, firm, unwavering. I lowered my voice to a whisper, meant only for Alice's grave. "You are wrong." A weak ray of sunlight broke through the clouds, reflecting off the wet grass, shining like the faintest promise. I turned from the grave, each step deliberate, my phone heavy in my palm. This wasn't over. That night, the rain tapped the windows of my small Portland house like restless fingers. I sat in the dark, the only light coming from an outside streetlight. On the coffee table was a photo of Alice and Oliver, taken years ago when he was just 6 years old. His smile stretched from ear to ear as he clung to his mother's hand. Now he couldn't even look me in the eye. I picked up the frame, felt the worn edges between my hands, and then put it back up. The house smelled faintly of Alice's lavender perfume, ghost remnants in the fabric of the sofa. Too quiet without her, too empty. My thoughts dragged me back through the years, the sacrifices, the dreams I'd abandoned. I'd once been an engineer with visions of bridges and blueprints. But when Oliver was born, I took 2 jobs. Days at the factory, nights as a custodian to keep him in private schools, pay his tuition, to give him everything. I remembered selling the family home Alice loved so much, just to fund Oliver's wedding to Emma. I remembered Alice's hand squeezing mine, telling me, "It's for Oliver." I believed her, but Emma had shown her true colors soon after. He could still hear her mocking voice from that dinner years ago. "This house is so quaint, James. Don't you ever want more?" His smile had stuck in my face as he swirled his wine glass. Oliver didn't defend me. He just stared at his plate. Later, in the quiet of our bedroom, Alice had warned me, "She'll take everything if you let her." I didn't hear her. Now he was paying for it. I got up from the couch and crossed to the bookshelf, knees stiff but mind sharp. The rain outside was growing stronger again, as if urging me forward. My fingers found Alice's leather-bound notebook, the one she kept beside her bed, filled with prayers and thoughts. I opened it. The smell of old paper rose, anchoring me. My eyes scanned his careful handwriting, words I'd left behind, a whisper of his presence, and then my phone vibrated on the table. A message. Family. They used the word as if it were a brand, something polished and marketable. But beneath that glare, I could already see the cracks. Emma waved a bedecked hand, her bracelet clinking like loose change. "The family is fine," he said, pushing the thought aside. "But we have bigger plans. This house, this lifestyle, it takes work you wouldn't understand." Oliver shuddered. His hand brushed against a coffee stain on the table, shaking. He couldn't look me in the eye. I sat back, watching them both. "Work," I said softly, tilting my head. "It must be exhausting, keeping all this going." She smiled disdainfully, blindly. "It's an investment. Oliver has businesses going on." She pushed him gently. He nodded too quickly, too eagerly. "Yes, Dad, it's fine," he murmured, but his voice cracked amid the lie. I let the silence linger. Silence is a sharper blade than words. My eyes scanned the room, and there it was, half buried under a glossy magazine. Another envelope. Red ink screaming across the front. Urgent. Their empire was already crumbling. And they thought I was too broken to notice. "Alice always said you were ambitious," I murmured, my tone flat and measured. Emma's smile tightened. "It was sweet," she said, her voice hardening. "But I didn't understand. Not like I do, you, with your little house, your simple life." She spat the words out as if they tasted bitter. "We're building something real." Oliver's knuckles turned white around the glass. I nodded, calm, taking in every detail. Their arrogance, their fear, the growing fissures they couldn't hide. I stood up, smoothing down my coat. "I'm not keeping you. I just wanted to check on you." Emma's relief was too obvious, too desperate, but she couldn't resist one last blow. "Don't worry, James, we'll take care of everything." Her eyes fell on Oliver, commanding him wordlessly. He murmured a goodbye, still staring at the floor. I stepped out into the cool mizzle, their voices muffled behind the heavy door. Back home, the familiar creaking of the floorboards welcomed me. I sat at the kitchen table, the old wood breathing memories into the air. Alice's notebook lay open, its pages waiting patiently. I wrote carefully. Oliver's debts, Emma's pride. One was blind, the other was weak. Together they were fragile. I slid a plain white envelope across the table, sealing its fate with firm fingers. It would be the first stone in its downfall. The next morning, the mailbox swallowed him with a hollow thud. An anonymous complaint, enough to shake Oliver's creditors, enough to wake up the hornets. 2 nights later, I stood in front of her gate. Music pounded from inside, the bass rattling the ironwork. Emma had invited me to her latest show, another opportunity to brag. I let my shoulders slump under my coat, playing the grieving widower. The maid opened the door. Warmth, light, and laughter hit me like a wave. The air was thick with perfume and expensive wine. Emma launched herself at me, her sequined dress reflecting the chandelier. "James, you came," she crooned, diamonds sparkling, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. Oliver trailed behind, his suit stretched taut across his chest, his eyes red-rimmed. "I wouldn't miss it," I said, my voice low, thick with practiced pain. Emma's gaze scanned my body, already bored. "Well, mingle with the crowd, we're celebrating." She turned, her laughter cutting through the murmur. I slipped through the sea of shallow faces unnoticed. They were laughing too loud, drinking too fast, orbiting Emma's borrowed light. But here and there whispers broke through. Oliver's business. Risky. A murmur, a mocking smile, a trace of doubt. I drank water, waiting, watching, filing everything. Oliver was falling apart. His smile was fragile, his hands shaking as he poured another whiskey. A guest pressed him about his latest project. He stammered, "It's under control." But I knew better. My letter had done its job. I caught Emma in the middle of a conversation, her laughter sounding fake. I leaned in, my voice soft and deliberate. "Alice would have loved this," I said. "She was always careful with her plans, and especially with the will." Emma froze. Her glass hovered halfway to her lips. "The will?" she repeated, tense, careful. I shrugged, feigning innocence. But I saw panic flicker in his eyes, and I knew then this was just the beginning. The party had been hers to command. The dress, the smile, the laughter that sounded too loud in the chandelier. Emma thought she owned the room, but beneath that glow I could already see the cracks. She thought of everything, every detail. That's how she was. Calculating, polished, rehearsed, but perfection always hides desperation. Then Oliver's phone rang. Just a vibration, but enough to wipe the color from his face. He excused himself and hurried out. Creditors were lurking again. Emma's laugh followed him, brittle, forced. We're fine, James, don't worry. But her hand gave her away, white knuckles around the glass she gripped too tightly. She was falling apart, though she didn't know it. I slipped to the edge of the room, silently watching. The party swirled, music and champagne masking the silent collapse unfolding in real time. Oliver didn't return. Emma's smile widened, her eyes shifting toward the empty doorway. That's when I left. The night air hit my face, the city spread out before me, every light a reminder of what was to come. In my car, the old sedan creaked under my weight, the seat complaining as if it knew my secrets. My phone flashed in the darkness. Lisa, next step ready. Call me, I smiled. The darkness enveloped me like a cloak. This is just the beginning, I murmured, the steering wheel firmly in my hands. The city blurred before me. Every streetlight, every shadow, one step closer to the reckoning. Later, at my house in Portland, the rain pounded the roof. Alice's photograph stared at me from the bookshelf, her eyes steady, eternal. Then, thud, sharp, urgent. I ran my thumb over the recorder hidden in my pocket, feeling its faint hum. Then I opened the door. Emma, Oliver. Faces carved by anger and despair. Emma's coat was dripping, her bracelet glinting in the porch light. Oliver's eyes were hollow. James, we need to talk. His voice lashed out like a whip as he pushed inside. Oliver murmured, Dad. Please, following her, I closed the door. The floorboards creaked like ancient bones. What's this about? I asked, calm and measured. My pulse quickened, but I didn't show it. The recorder absorbed every word. Emma's fury opened like a crack. You've done something.
Don't deny it.
The creditors, lurking like vultures. You're trying to ruin us. I raised an eyebrow, the mask of confusion in place. Ruin them. I'm just an old man mourning his wife. Don't play dumb. His voice cut through the air like glass. You pathetic loser meddling where you don't belong. Oliver tugged on his arm. Stop. But she broke free, her bracelet hitting the parquet. We are drowning and he rejoices. I leaned against the wall, feigning fatigue. Inside I was steel, drowning, I said softly. Looks like they spent more than they ever had. Oliver shuddered. Dad, we just need help. A loan, maybe. Something. The silence stretched on, deliberate. Then I knocked. Alice handled our finances. She decided everything. You know that. Emma's laugh was bitter. Oh, please. That lovely will. We'll challenge it in court if necessary. His threat hung in the air, poisonous, but I didn't blink. Do what you must, I said coldly. But Alice was meticulous. Oliver hunched over, his shoulders slumped. His eyes begged her to stop. Emma spat out her final dagger. You're nothing, James. A sad old man in a sad little house. The words burned, but I let them pass. The recorder captured every syllable. Maybe, I said, my voice low, lethal. But I'm not begging. Her face twisted. She shot out, the door slamming into the storm. Oliver stood there. His lips trembled. I'm sorry, he whispered, before following her into the rain. The silence that followed was sacred. I turned off the recorder. Alice's photo remained firm in its frame, her eyes shining with approval. I called Lisa. Do you have anything good? He asked. Better than good, I said, looking at the recorder. His threats. His desperation, leverage, Lisa laughed softly. Send it. We'll use it. I sat at the kitchen table, the aroma of coffee filling the air. I echoed Emma's high-pitched voice, holding nothing back. Each word was a brick in the wall I was building. Opening Alice's notebook, I wrote a line. Her anger will break her. The recorder closed. A promise. Outside, the rain was easing. The next move was near. Days later, Portland was covered in fog. The cafe lights shone like lanterns in the mist. Lisa waited in a corner, glasses fogged up by her latte. Papers were neatly stacked beside her. "James," he said with a sly smile. "You look like a man with a plan." He slid a folder across the table. "Alice's idea. Redirect your assets to her foundation, unbeatable, legal. It will shatter Emma and Oliver's expectations." I ran my finger along the edge of the folder and nodded, shrewd. "But I wanted more. We need leverage," I said. "Something to break them." "A private investigator." Lisa's eyes sparkled. "Now you're playing hard." "I like it." His pen scratched his notebook. "I know a man, discreet, thorough. What should I look for?" "Anything," I said flatly. "Secrets, lies. Emma's too trusting to cover her tracks." Lisa smiled. "Greed makes people careless." Alice always knew that. We talked for an hour, timelines, tactics, legal pitfalls. Finally, Lisa leaned back. "Emma thinks she's already won. She spent the inheritance on her own head." I remembered the red dress Emma wore to Alice's funeral. The arrogance. The mocking smile. "He'll learn it," I said, my voice low. Lisa slid the contract toward me. "Sign. Let's close this." Later, alone, my phone vibrated. A deep voice crackled on the line. "Crow, the investigator. He's got something. Emma has an offshore account." I closed my eyes, a slow smile forming. The cracks were widening, and soon the whole facade would collapse. The call came just after dark. My investigator's voice was calm, almost casual, but his words carried a weight that cut like a blade. "He's siphoning money from Oliver. He's hiding it. Do you want me to investigate further?" For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The cafe around me became a meaningless murmur, the hum of conversations and the clinking of cups fading into a still, static silence. My pulse quickened, steady at first, then pounding like a war drum in my chest. A cold chill settled deep in my bones. Half fear, half excitement. "Yes," I finally said, my voice firm, almost distant. "Anything you can find." I hung up before the investigator could respond. My gaze drifted to the rain-stained window, where the city stretched out beneath Portland's signature gray fog. The glass reflected my face, older, harder than I remembered. Emma's betrayal of Oliver wasn't an accident. It was a gift, a crack in his polished, united facade, a weakness I could exploit. I opened Alice's notebook, the one I'd carried for months, its pages soft and worn beneath my fingers, the ink blurred by years of use. Each entry was a blueprint, each word a reminder of purpose. With slow, deliberate strokes I wrote, "Her secret account." The rift. The plan was taking shape, each piece fitting together like the blueprints I drew as an engineer. Precise. Calculated. I raised the coffee cup to my lips. The bitter taste was sharp, almost metallic, as if the drink itself carried the sting of betrayal. Outside, the drizzle turned into a steady mist, shrouding the city in secrecy. I put the phone in my pocket. A peso, a promise of the next move. "You haven't seen what I'm capable of," I muttered to myself, tearing the coffee receipt in two before getting up from the table. The bell above the door jingled softly as I stepped out into the fog, each step measured, my mind already ahead of itself. That night, the clouds parted enough to reveal a rare stretch of April sky. The city buzzed with spring life, neon reflections flashing off wet asphalt, strangers laughing under streetlights, the smell of damp earth mingling with exhaust fumes. I parked my sedan a block from the restaurant, the kind of elegant place Emma adored, where chandeliers glittered like stars and wealth was displayed like a disguise. Hours earlier, he'd sent the package, a plain envelope, with carefully copied bank statements, Emma's secret account exposed in black and white. Addressed to Oliver. No return address, no explanation. Just the truth. Now I was leaning against a streetlight, the restaurant's glow spilling out onto the sidewalk like a spotlight. Alice's notebook pressed against my chest from inside my coat, a silent accomplice to this outcome. Through the wide windows I saw her, Emma, radiant in a bright green dress, reigning at the head of the long table. She was laughing too loud, gesticulating excessively, her charm carefully curated. Oliver was at her side, his tie loose, his smile faint and fragile. Her friends were laughing and drinking, clinking glasses, but I saw the stiffness in Emma's shoulders, the way Oliver's hand lingered a moment too long on his phone. I waited, firmly, patiently. The soft notes of the jazz band mingled with the faint sound of cutlery. My breath caught in the night air, slow and deliberate. And then, it happened. Oliver's phone lit up. He looked down. His expression lost all life in an instant. He stood up abruptly, his chair squeaking on the polished floor. His hand slammed on the table, the device vibrating against the cutlery. His usually subdued voice cut through the restaurant like a blade. "You've been lying to me." The room froze. A dozen heads turned. Emma froze too, her fork suspended in midair. "What are you talking about?" she squeaked, her voice sharp and rehearsed. But her eyes flickered just for a second to the surrounding guests. Oliver's hands shook as he pushed the phone toward her, veins popping out, fury seeping through his movements. "This account," he spat. "You're stealing from me." Gasps were heard around the table. A woman covered her mouth. A waiter hesitated, unsure whether to intervene. Emma forced a laugh, shrill, brittle, filled with despair. "Don't be ridiculous, Oliver. You're embarrassing us." But his voice broke, and the guests drew back, as if their guilt gave off a stench they could no longer ignore. Oliver didn't give in. His anger spilled out like a storm finally unleashed. "Do you think I'm weak?" he roared. His fist closed around a glass, which he smashed against the table, shattering. Shards flew like sparks. Wine spilled onto the white tablecloth like blood. Emma stood up, her cheeks flushed, her mask finally falling. Her voice rose, venomous, cutting through the silence. "You're pathetic," he hissed, loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. "You've ruined everything." The words floated in the air, echoing. A guest muttered, "This is a mess." The waiter left. Then, her eyes lifted, beyond the glass, toward the window, toward the street, searching. For me. I stayed still, covered in shadow, too far away for her to be sure, but close enough for her to feel it, the panic, the suspicion. She knew. There was no proof yet, but her instincts were right. I turned away, letting her drown in the mess. When I got to my car, my phone vibrated. The screen name was Emma. I answered. His voice came through the speaker, poisonous, cracking at the edges. "You're behind this, aren't you? You're going to pay for this, James." I let his fury unfold, let him spit fire into the night. And then, calm, measured, I whispered, "Good night, Emma." The line went dead. The night around me was silent, save for the distant hum of traffic. I sat in the leather driver's seat, cool against my back, and opened Alice's notebook. My pen scraped across the page, steady, deliberate. His mask is down. One more push. The engine purred to life, the headlights cutting through the darkness. Emma's scream, Oliver's fury. They played in my mind like a symphony. Not chaos, but music. The music only revenge could compose. She did this to herself, I murmured. My grip on the notebook tightened. Its pages weren't just paper. They were prophecy. A few days later, the sun broke through the stubborn May clouds, casting long shadows over the park in front of Emma and Oliver's mansion. I sat on a damp bench, the smell of wet grass mingling with the freshly turned earth. From here, I watched everything unfold. A tow truck was removing Oliver's sleek black car, the jewel of his collection. Another followed, loading furniture belonging to him. Creditors, collection agencies. The vultures I'd summoned with my anonymous tips, each striking with precision. Alice's notebook lay open on my lap, a single word etched on the page. Consequences. I traced the letters with my finger, feeling the weight of each step that had led me here. Oliver staggered out of the mansion, his once impeccable suit now wrinkled, his face pale and drawn. He was arguing with a man holding a clipboard, his hands frantic, his voice cracking. but the trucks moved forward, unconcerned. I stood still, a shadow among sparrows and whispering leaves. His empire was crumbling, piece by piece, and I had orchestrated every note of his downfall. That night, my doorbell rang, high-pitched, urgent. When I opened it, Oliver was there. Red eyes, pockets stuffed deep, body hunched as if carrying too much weight. "Dad," he croaked. His voice was raspy, almost childish. He entered without waiting. The room smelled of coffee, wood, and memory. Alice's photo watched him from the shelf, silent. "They're taking everything," Oliver whispered, his hands shaking as he ran his fingers through his hair. "Emma's furious. She says it's my fault, but I can't fix this." He looked at me then, desperate, fragile. "You have money, Dad, from Mom's inheritance. Just a loan, please." I leaned against the counter, Alice's notebook heavy in my hands. The weight steadied me. "Sell the mansion," I said coldly. "Cut down, you don't need as much." Panic welled in her eyes. "Emma will kill me. That house is her dream." I turned the notebook slowly in my hands. My voice was flat and firm. "Then you have a problem. Alice left a plan, Oliver, not me." His face collapsed. His voice dropped to a whisper. "She's destroying me." The words pierced, distant echoes of the child I once raised. For an instant, the pain was real. But I didn't falter. "You chose her." The silence that followed was heavier than any rain Portland had ever known. Oliver's shoulders slumped. He left without another word, shuffling his feet. The door closed behind him. I stayed still. The notebook pressed against my chest. The war was far from over. Emma thought she could threaten me. Oliver thought he could beg me. Neither of them really understood this was just the beginning. The porch creaked under my footsteps as I paused in the fading light. The sky was ablaze with gold and crimson, the kind of sunset that marks an end. Or a beginning. In my hand, an envelope from Lisa's office, plain, unmarked, but heavy with promises. I haven't opened it yet. I just held it, feeling the cold of the paper against my palm like a soldier assessing his last bullet. In the other hand, Alice's notebook. Her words. Her truth, and with both he brought justice. Inside, the phone glowed on the table. Waiting. Always waiting. But the next move wasn't mine. It was Alice's. And Lisa was her voice. The next day, the lawyer's office swallowed me up completely. A cold box of mahogany and paper, where even whispers seemed too loud. The Portland sky outside was gray, clouds smothering the sun, but here the real storm was just beginning. Emma sat at the table, her emerald necklace glittering, her perfectly manicured nails beating like the drum of pride. Oliver hunched beside her, withered, eyes lowered as if preparing for the blow he knew was coming. And at the head of the table, Lisa Wilson. Calm, precise, a stack of papers before her. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. "We are here," he said, "to read Alice Crow's last will and testament." Emma leaned forward, a crooked smile tugging at the corner of her lips. She thought this room already belonged to her, but I knew better. Alice had written this ending herself. I had only helped sharpen the edges. Lisa's voice was firm, deliberate. The majority of Alice Crow's inheritance, her savings, property, and investments, will be used to establish and fully fund the Alice Crow Children's Foundation, dedicated to pediatric care throughout Oregon. The words fell like stones into still water. Emma froze, her nails silenced. "What?" he spat, his voice cutting through the air. Lisa didn't blink. "Everything is legal." Alice was meticulous. Emma's face paled, her emerald necklace now exaggeratedly striking against her skin. Oliver's head jerked up. His mouth fell open, stuttering. That's all." Lisa turned the page. To Emma Crow. Alice leaves her antique pocket watch. To Oliver Crow. His first edition collection of books. The chair squeaked as it backed away. Emma jumped up. "This is a joke." "You can't do this." His voice cracked, the fury of privilege overflowing. But Lisa's gaze was stony. "He already did it." Emma's hands were shaking, her necklace swinging like a pendulum of anger. He pointed at me, his scream raw. You did this. You twisted his words. I met his gaze, my voice low, firm as iron. Alice saw you clearly, Emma. Both of you. Oliver broke down, his useless apology spilling out. Dad, I'm sorry. We didn't mean. I cut him off coldly. They wanted to say everything at her funeral. And today Alice spoke for me. His shoulders rolled inwards, the weight of his own reflection finally pressing down. Emma shot out, her heels clicking, her absence leaving the air heavier than before. Lisa closed the folder with quiet finality. We're done here, he said. Outside, the city buzzed, unaware of the justice that had just unfolded behind the heavy gates. The clouds parted, a ray of sunshine painting the street gold. I pulled Lisa's letter out of my coat, the first steps of Alice's, founding outlined in crisp black ink. Justice had a taste pure, sharp, like the air after the rain. The next day at the cemetery, I carved Alice's name into the cold granite. The scent of lilacs floated on the breeze, soft and discreet. You would be proud, Alice, I whispered. Your voice was louder than his greed. The silver cross lay warm in my palm, and for the first time in years, the horizon didn't seem like an end. It seemed like a beginning. Alice's silver cross hung in my hand, the chain catching the late morning light like a thread of fire. I watched it, its weight not only physical but spiritual, soaked with years of memory and loss. You did it, I whispered, my voice firm now, without tremors, without hesitation. You saw them for who they were, and you fixed it. I sank into the grass beneath the old elm, the earth cool against me, the cross warm in my palm as if it carried Alice's touch. For a long moment I remained silent, listening to the faint rustle of the leaves, the quiet murmur of a world finally bending again toward justice. But even here, peace wasn't simple. Echoes haunted me. Emma's scream, the one she couldn't suppress in the lawyer's office, still echoed in my head. High-pitched, desperate, the kind of sound that strips a person of their dignity. I could still see her, the red dress that had been a symbol of her pride, now a disguise for shame, clinging to her body as she stumbled, tears in her eyes, out the door. And then Oliver. His voice cracked and broken, struggling to muster apologies that came too late. He was no longer the boy I raised, nor the man he pretended to be. Just a hollow figure begging the silence to forgive him, but I didn't feel sorry. None. Just certainty. They thought they could take it all, I said aloud, my voice firmer now. I held the cross up so the sun bathed it, shining brightly. But you, Alice, you left them nothing but their own greed, and greed doesn't last. A breeze rose, soft and deliberate, rustling the branches above me. For a moment I let myself believe it was his answer, his presence enveloping me. I closed my hand around the cross and stood, brushing the earth from my knees. I was no longer the man who had once stood here broken, drowning in betrayal. That man was gone. I put the cross in my pocket and walked down the street toward the cafe. The same cafe where Lisa and I had hatched our plans as conspirators of justice. The bell above the door rang as I entered. The hum of the coffee machine filled the air, mingling with the buttery sweetness of the freshly baked croissants. The place felt alive, safe, almost sacred. Lisa stood in the corner, her notebook open, her pen resting lazily between her fingers. When she saw me, a smile lit her face. You look lighter, he said, sliding a steaming cup toward me. I sat across from her, the ceramic warm against my hands. I feel like I've lifted a weight, I admitted, exhaling a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Lisa laughed, adjusting her glasses that were slipping down her nose. Emma and Oliver? They're losing more than just weight. They say they're selling the mansion just to cover debts. I nodded, unsurprised. Alice knew they would fall apart. She always knew. Lisa leaned back, studying me, her tone softening. I was hoping you'd finish it. And you did. We lingered for a while over our coffee. His sarcasm, as sharp as ever, gave way to a warmth I'd learned to rely on. He flipped pages in his notebook, showing me reports and plans. The foundation is going strong, he said, sliding a piece of paper across the table. We could use you. Your brain for this. What do you say? I smiled weakly, the idea igniting something unknown inside me. Hope. Maybe I'll think about a trip first. Clear my mind. Lisa raised her cup, her eyes sparkling. To new paths. Our cups clinked together, the sound sharp, bright, final. Later, I left the cafe with a folded invitation in my pocket. Dinner next week. A chance to talk more, plan, maybe even live again. The sun was high, pouring color over the city, painting everything with a vibrancy I thought I'd forgotten. Life still has surprises, I murmured, my steps lighter than they had been in months. The invitation seemed more than paper. It was a door, one I hadn't expected to open. I reached my car, the silver cross pressed against my chest, and stopped. For the first time in years, I looked up at the sky without bitterness. Whatever came next, he would face it whole. The man Alice always knew he was. The days passed. Sunlight streamed through my kitchen window, bathing the old wooden table in gold. It was late May 2025, and Portland was buzzing with the promise of summer. I sat with a cup of coffee, the steam rising, its bitter aroma enveloping me like an anchor to the present. On the table lay a letter, unopened until now. Its envelope bore the stamp of the Alice Crowe Children's Foundation. I slid it open, my fingers steady, and read. The words inside fell like a silent thunderclap. My donation, Alice's legacy, had saved a pediatric ward from closing. Children would live, heal, laugh again, thanks to what we had done. I leaned back, the chair creaking, and a warmth rose inside me that wasn't just from the sun. My revenge hadn't just destroyed Emma and Oliver. I'd built something lasting, something Alice would be proud of. Emma's screams, Oliver's broken pleas, they were shadows now. Distant, small. The phone rang. Lisa's name lit up the screen. Did you read the letter? He asked, his voice bright. Yes, I said, smiling despite myself. Feels good, right? He laughed. Oh, and your kids? The mansion's gone. Divorce papers signed. They're done. I nodded slowly without surprise. There was no joy, only finality. They made their choices. His tone softened. You did better. See you later at the park. I have ideas you'll want to hear. Count me in, I said, hanging up, my hand resting on the warm mug. The letter lay open in front of me, a dove embossed in the corner. I traced it with my thumb. The vision of Alice still guided me. That afternoon I met Lisa in the park. Children's laughter filled the air. The leaves rustled above, and the world felt alive in ways I'd almost forgotten. She showed me pages of sketches, projects, dreams waiting to be born. This could be great, he said, his eyes shining. Are you in? I smiled. The weight of the past finally lifted. Count me in. We laughed, an easy, unburdened sound like the first real laugh after a storm. Lisa's hand brushed mine as she pointed to a sketch in her notebook, her emotion spilling over into the still evening air. Friendship had taken root in the ruins of betrayal. A gift Alice had left behind, invisible but undeniable. The sun sank lower, lengthening long shadows across the grass, as if the day itself wanted to linger in this moment. I stood slowly, Alice's notebook resting in my hand, its worn leather softened by months of planning, sketching, and dreaming. Emma and Oliver were gone. Their world collapsed into dust and debt. But mine unfolded, each page blank and waiting. I thought about traveling. The coast, perhaps, or somewhere farther away where the sea kissed unknown shores. A place to breathe, to dream again. I opened my notebook and placed pen to paper. Just one line, one vow, not for anyone else's eyes. A secret I would carry with me to whatever came next. The world is still waiting, I murmured, holding the notebook close to my chest. The horizon burned with the last glow of the day, gold and crimson, endless and vivid. I walked toward my car, the weight I carried now not of pain or rage but of possibility. My steps were sure, lighter than they had been in years. The engine roared, steady and steady. I hit the road, the sun at my back, the future stretched out before me without writing. And as the city passed by me, I understood. Revenge had closed one story, but Alice's light had begun another. Soft pause, then lower voice. Closing style. If this journey resonated with you, if her story and mine spoke to you, like this video, subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. And when you're ready for the next chapter, click the box on the left. Thanks for watching.